Committee for Foreign Policy. Yes, and she's the TV correspondent for CW6 News San Diego, as well as One America News Network. And her website is The KD Report. And guess what? She's streaming live now at Periscope.com, Facebook. She'll be on YouTube a little bit later on. Hello, Kimberly.
Hello, Chuck.
Yep. Sounds like you're on one end of the tunnel and I'm on the other.
Yes.
And we don't want to hear a train coming.
Right? Hopefully there's
no
train.
Right off the bat, I noticed that on your Facebook you had put it there, and I can't find it now because it went down, but I'm sorry about that. But basically what it was is New York Times, they were claiming Saturday that Navy Secretary Richard Spencer threatened to resign and blah, 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 and it turned out, it's a bunch of fake news, as usual, from the New York Times.
Yeah.
And that's correct, right? All over this.
Absolutely correct. And I know that you're a Navy man here, but I think that even you can agree that the process that played out in the media was deeply dividing and actually highlighted something that we saw in the impeachment inquiry, whereas we have a whole bunch of bureaucrats, and let's just put it out there, the DOD is in the middle of all of that, and they also have incredible integrity issues, and this is something that dates back quite some time, where they have people that will be judges and prosecutors, and they aren't likely to, or they're more likely to come out and say, well, I really just don't like that guy's attitude, and they look at, each case in some form of bias, which most Americans probably didn't know about this until Eddie Gallegher came along here, but it's actually equally as difficult to get a fair trial within the military system. So we've seen lots of errors, we've seen lots of misleading, and lots of, very, sad convictions on some people that have served this country, honorably and well. So as America has watched what the Democrats are doing on this impeachment, where we see bureaucrats who are assigned to the post at the NSC, and we know more than Trump about this, and we're the experts, you're seeing that. The exact same thing is happening within the Defense Department. And I think that it's about time that all of this kind of comes out from the dark, so to speak. And we can see what the judicial system in this country, whether it be for the United States of America or for the military, is really all about, and how they dispense with verdicts and so on.
Kimberly, when you say, those that say, well, we know more than Trump when it comes to the military, they sure didn't have that attitude when they knew more than Obama.
Yeah.
I mean, and Trump at least went to a military school.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And Obama, I mean, look at all the stuff he did against the military. And what about, who was it, Bert Bodow, whatever his name was.
Bo Bergdahl. Yeah, we traded Bo Bergdahl.
Yeah.
And this is also a good time to, remind people too. Now, the president has, this last week, he, in essence, pardoned, a, handful of people who were in the judicial system, found themselves at the end of maybe a not so unbiased judge and prosecutor, and landed in jail. There are a number of people out there, hundreds, that the president hasn't said he's giving blanket immunity to these people to get them out of jail. And they're in jail for things like drunk driving, for domestic abuse, things of that nature. So, what the president was looking at when you look at these people that he actually, kind of gave a second chance, these are people who actually were fighting in the Middle East. These were people who were operating under extremely, tough, situations on the ground where you have to make a split decision like that. You can't sit and think about things for 5 minutes and then let's do a roll call here. And that's just not the way it works on the battlefield. And Eddie Gallegher served, in the Middle East for 8 tours, I believe he went over there. That's a lot of tours to go to the Middle East and have a lot of different, terrorist activities thrown at you day in and day out. And of course, in the case with Eddie Gallegher, it just, his percolated up to the top here because it was a SEAL and it was wartime, and people, just were kind of getting a notion for what actually happens when you're out on, on a mission. trying to breach a little village, and you're trying to capture a known terrorist. Those kind of things, again, very split second. And because Obama severely restricted a lot of the engagement rules, we see that a lot of these guys like Gallegher kind of got caught up in that system, and the president felt he was doing what was right in this particular case.
And there is what I would call the percentage factor. There's a percentage, and I don't know how high it is. I'm going to say about 10% possibly. People you're training on the other side, and then they turn out to be a bad guy, and they'll shoot you in the back.
Yeah.
And you don't know what's going on over there all the time.
Yeah, we have
the other thing that.
Yeah, it's green on blue. It's the green on blue violence, I think, what you're talking about, where we train them and they kill us. So.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that's coming up a lot is the Trident pin.
Yeah.
I heard someone over the weekend say, well, they're just talking about a little thing he wears on his uniforms, right? And I said, No. And I'll tell you, Kimberly,
I'd like to hear your point of view on this, because you serve. So, I mean, it's very interesting to hear the Trident pin, and I think it's important for the viewers and the listeners to actually hear it. And I think that you'll be able to describe that best. So let's hear it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to tell you one thing. One of my best friends when I was in the Navy, on board a ship, and during boot camp, I had actually put in that I wanted to join UDT. Okay, there were no SEALs. It was the underwater demolition team. But it's like I've been a lifeguard, for 4 years every summer. And this other guy, his name was Stephen Carey, and he and I decided, all of a sudden we get a call and said, hey, you guys have been accepted. We were in Long Beach, and they had a SEAL commander that started running us through all kind of exercises. This was in Long Beach, not San Diego.
Yeah.
And then we were going to go to San Diego, for training. And me, I kind of had this thing that's called your heart. And I said, I really like this girl, and I think I'm going to stay here instead of going over there. And I knew it was going to be UDT Team 12, and it'd be in Civic Bay. And I said, no, I'm not going to go back to Civic Bay. So he went, and he became a member in SEAL Team 1, okay? And, he and I remained friends for a long time. And the training you go through, I'm going to tell you right now, it is unbelievable. You think about it's cold right now in places in the United States.
Yeah.
No, you don't know. And you were in San Diego, you were down there where they were training.
Yeah.
Coronado.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And the Triton pin is almost saying like you went to hell and came back, basically. That's what it is. And if you get that pin, it represents so much. And you mentioned in this story about, whenever a SEAL member or UDT member dies, they actually take that pin and pound it on the coffin. Yeah.
And it's a symbolic, I from people that, I know in the military, it's kind of a symbolic issue with them, but it also dignifies that, they competed and they worked at the highest level possible. And when a fallen, SEAL, they do. And it's a very, I don't know if anybody out there has really watched, a military, funeral involving the SEALs. You may not even know the SEAL. It'll bring you to tears, what they do and the honor they carry and the fight that this country has asked them to fight. And for the government to over petty politics, and again, this kind of brings in the whole bureaucracy, Secretary Spencer believed that he knew more than the president. He was not going to, idly sit by, because it wasn't their politically correct view of the military. So they were, in essence, if the president would have let this go, they would have stripped him of his pin, and then he would have returned to a lower, obviously ranking, which would have reduced his pay. But it wasn't necessarily about that. And I think that, for Eddie Gallegher and for a lot of other SEALs out there, it means you're trying to take away all the hard work, all of the time to get away from your family, and you're putting yourself in these dangerous situations so you can provide free speech to Americans back at home so we can talk about it. And you want to take that away like it never happened. And again, the Middle East is hell. The war is hell. And we ask these young people that sign up with the military to actually go out and get in the middle of all this and try to do the best to get rid of and kill terrorists so we can be safe here on the homeland. You know, we can argue all day whether they should be there in the first place or not, but these people are following orders and they're out doing this. And as you know, like with Vietnam, there are always things that, you know, we don't know how they're going to react in a certain situation, and we don't know all the details. But what we do know is that Eddie Gallegher bucked the system, and therefore he became a target from the system. And this time the system wasn't DOJ. This time the system was military justice.
Yeah, and you know, and the SEALs, they go out and do the job that normally it would be turned down. No, that you can't do it. It's too complicated, or it's impossible to pull it off. You know, perhaps these guys that were, you know, not going along with Trump, maybe they should have checked with Biden. You know, because remember him? He's the guy that revealed that it was SEAL Team 6 that got Osama bin Laden.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, their plane shot down.
Yeah.
It is amazing what the other administration did.
Yeah.
And it's still lingering on. But boy, there wasn't a big deal
until the president got involved.
You know, the Republicans.
It was president. Whatever President Trump does is on the front page of the New York Times, saying, you know, President Obama did a whole lot of things as well that the military took issue with, but it never found its way into the front page of the New York Times. It was never the leading story. Today, you know, we chose this topic on Saturday. I just knew that this was going to be a big one that the Democrats and mainstream media would pick up on. And it is a big story in a way that it kind of like shows the other side and actually highlights how these, you know, people that, you know, aren't elected are making decisions that are, you know, not in step with the president. But, you know, I knew the Monday morning, you know, quarterbacking on this was going to be a lot of fun today. And of course, now we learned that Spencer, you know, talked to the Defense Secretary Esper, and he came out and said that you know, before Esper could fire him, he's like, "Oh, I sent my resignation." And so here we are. We have this game again where, "Oh no, you were fired. You were Esper." Well, we actually know that on Sunday that Esper said that he called him on the phone and told Spencer that he was fired, indeed fired. So, you know, coming out and trying to save face and get in the good graces of Chuck Schumer, who's fighting for Spencer, and how dare they do this. But I think the other person that hasn't been named just yet and most likely should be on the chopping block would be Admiral Green, and he was Spencer's little partner in this entire shindig. And once these, you know, admirals and generals get involved, they become very political, and they get there because they follow the rules and they're politically correct. And once they get there, they feel that they have earned the right to, you know, tell the rest of America how we should and shouldn't act within the military. So I just think that, you know, a lot of these generals and admirals, we're seeing, you know, that the president is forcing their hand, and they ought to be handing in their resignations if they're not in line with what their commander-in-chief is. Can you imagine a sergeant on the ground saying, "Okay, guys, we're going to go up and take that hill over there"? And they're like, "Well, you know what, boss? It's 4:00, and I'm really thirsty. The sand's in my teeth, and can we do it tomorrow, or maybe not ever?" I mean, in the military, you have that, chain of command for a reason. So people actually are out there doing what they're told, and they know what to do, and that's not going to put the rest of the platoon or brigade at risk. I mean, there are protocols, and the military has established this over the many decades that it has been in existence. And I think people get lost in that. And when these people get to be general and admirals, they're no longer out on the battlefield anymore. They're in an office. They're saying, "Hey, I want to make some money. I'm making lots of money now, but I'm going to make more money." And they start taking political sides. And when that happens, they need to remove themselves from the situation if they want to keep their integrity when they retire and go out to the private sector.
And chain of command. So you hit it right on the nail. The United States is we got a pretty good statistical record of doing pretty good in all of the wars that we've been involved with, and it is that chain of command. And let me see. We start down here, and we got Gallegher, and we got the commander of this guy, and the general here, Commander-in-Chief, President of the United States.
Yeah.
And you may disagree with the guy that's in the House.
Yeah.
Look at what happened with Truman.
Yeah.
And MacArthur. Was it MacArthur that said, I'm not going to call in there and find out, did I have the right guy, MacArthur?
Yeah.
Korean War?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm not going to let them tell me what bridge I can bomb and not bomb. I know I'm right here, and
And he lost. But that's the thing. The lack of respect for the president and the office that he holds has been just completely obliterated. And, in an ordinary, time when everything isn't so, polarized, the Secretary of Navy maybe could have, rang up the press and said, I really think that this is my case, my plea on the case, and I'm going to give you my advice as to what's going to happen. But ultimately, I know that decision's yours.
All right, going to take that break. We'll be back in just a moment. Kimberly Dvorak, Senior Foreign Policy Advisor for the Committee for Responsible Foreign Policy. And this one, Trump puts Navy brass on notice. Don't overrule me. Wow. Start from the tiny bottom and work your way up and think where we'd have it there. Ooh. Bad news. The serious thing is when you start letting politics get into the military situation or war situation, it's really bad. And I guess it's gone on many, many times. It's gone on for a long time. But when it gets political, see, like right now, boy, this is such a big deal, all right? But we go back again that whenever Bergdahl, who was a traitor, and Obama released prisoners to get him back, and then when the people were searching for him, how many people were killed? American soldiers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just,
it's really,
politics.
It's politics. And, not a lot of people brought up the fact that, despite most of his platoon, in the case of Bo Bergdahl, they all came out and didn't have very nice things to say about him and his desertion. He deserted. And he's not sitting in a prison cell anywhere for his crime of desertion. Again, war in the Middle East with these terrorists is gruesome. You have to make split decisions. We have to trust that our special ops team, who are provided a lot more training and also have the ability to get right down into the nitty gritty and fight these wars, they have to be given, some leeway here. I mean, they've watched a lot of their, brothers and sisters in the ranks, be killed from IEDs, from, snipers, from green on blue violence, from people they're training that, turn around and turn the weapon on them. They see this. They are living this every single day when they're over there. They're not getting the call home to the family. They don't come home for Thanksgiving. They're doing the job that the United States military is asking them to do and do to the best of their ability. And when it comes to terrorists, you don't know what they're going to do. They're very unpredictable. And I think in this case, especially with Eddie Gallegher here, he saw friends get wiped out by these terrorists. He's not going to, maybe that wasn't the best, decision in posing for the picture. But, in a time of war, you've got to kind of, look at people. And back in World War II and the Korean War and that, when the U.S. military would kill enemies, they would chop their head off and put them on the doorstep of family. So this is not something that has not been done. And in this case, nobody's head was chopped off and he wasn't walking around with something like that. But when you're in that situation, it's so visceral. It's so, your nerves and everything. Exactly. And nobody knows what you're going to do when you see that. If you see a buddy blown to pieces, literally, you don't know how you're going to react. And when you see the person responsible, you're going to be upset that, this person did that. So I just think that, if the military and the president or these politicians that claim to be generals and admirals here, if they really see war as hell, which it is, and they don't want our troops to be involved in something like that because they're worried about the political correctness, then this is what they need to do. They need to bring the troops home. They need to pat them on the back and say, good job, we're done, and it's time to move on from this, and we don't want any more of our sailors and soldiers and Marine Corps troops to get injured, killed, or have to get out there and live in the fear dip every single day, come home injured, PTS. So we have to stop that. That's what we have to stop.
All out of time, Kimberly. And in your report, you say he's going to face a review next month, determine if he should remain on the elite force. And personally, I say full speed ahead, sir. Yes. Kimberly Dvorak, D-V-O-R-A-K. We'll do it again next week. Appreciate it very much. Remember, the website is thekdreport.com.